when typing, all sorts of scary things that people have experienced need tending to, and they come to you because you are in a position of therapy, but you're also in a position of transcendence that a lot of therapists don't necessarily offer. And I like using the typewriter in poetry because it's kind of like my shield of protection, and whatever flows through the typewriter I just assume to be is the truth that the client needs, and I trust that invisible knowledge that speaks in the head when I type, whether or not I'm thinking, it speaks, and I just transcribe. So one thing that people have come to me about a few times is when there's been a division in the family and people haven't spoken to each other in 10 or more years. A few people have come to me with that situation where they wanted to reach out to a relative, to a sibling, to a child to whom they had a falling out with. And they tell me, you know, some basic details as to like why the falling out happened and what they wish to get out of communication with this person again. And then I write it, and much to my relief, people get back to me and say, like, we just had a conversation for the first time in 10 years. And it's not like I expect them to like suddenly like fall into each other's arms and start weeping and like to share a loaf of bread and to clang wine glasses and say never apart. But it is it's a big deal to go from silence to conversation after 10 or more years of silence. Other times I've given a lot of people closure to a situation that they just couldn't heal from, like the woman whose husband just cut her out of her life without warning when everything seemed like it had been going good. He just up and left her, and she couldn't reach out to her parents, to his parents, and she had like given up everything, moved to the other side of the country, like given up her friends just to be married to this man, and then he just leaves her. I mean, I think about that one years after writing it, like that's intense. And so she wanted me to write a letter from him explaining to her why he left so that she could move on. So I had to really come up with a situation for that. And then I guess I've written a lot of breakup letters for people, or fake breakup letters when people are really mad at each other and they just can't move on from the anger. I've written insults to people, but the insults that I write are pretty much never actually given to the person who they're intended to insult. And a few times when people have asked me for a legitimate insult for someone who did something gravely wrong for them, luckily, like that person seemed to have like an anxiety attack every time they wanted to meet with me to discuss their need, and then it just seemed apparent that they weren't actually up for it. And that's happened a few times, like, and those people always want to meet in person. Like, I generally don't meet people in person to do a letter, but people who want to commission a serious insult letter to someone who gravely harmed them always want to meet up in person, and they always have some sort of like confusion, or they can't find the location to meet you, or they're in such a fury, they can't think straight, they can't know where they are, and they can't meet with you. And so it's just as well, because I would probably tell that person, you know, this is not my job to create more hate and more ragged edges in the world, and I am sorry that I cannot write that for you, but I can't.